Hey guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today we are talking about what most of the time is an absolutely majorly controversial subject in the bass fishing community, period. It is actually probably any fishing community, really. And it's what causes fish to spawn. And there's quite a few, I feel like, different answers that can be given to that. Different fish are affected differently, and fish in different types of water are affected differently. The moon phases, we're going to dig way into that, but we are going to specifically talk about bass. But definitely tidal water is a big thing when it comes to moon phases. But there's plenty of evidence that other fish, being bass in reservoirs, lakes across the country, also relate their spawning habits to moon phases. But I think that there's something a little more simple than the moon phases that can affect how fish spawn. And it's because the moon phases might not fall perfectly with temperatures, water levels, weather conditions. Plenty of things cannot fall in line with the moon phases that can turn fish off when it comes to spawning. So I think that obviously an increase in the amount of light causes fish to at least start thinking about spawning. I think that also water warming causes them to start to go that direction. But days getting longer, the moon, which is a huge source of light during the night, I think can also cause fish to think about spawning more and spawn more. So something that can actually shake things up that people don't think about when it comes to moon phases, because I think that the amount of light in a 24-hour period plays such a huge factor, are clouds. There is a large possibility, and I would say evidence from what I have seen, that even during a full moon, if you have lots of cloud cover around the clock, that it will actually back those fish off some, just like a major cold front in the middle of the spawn can do the same thing. That those fish want a combination of things, and there are when everything aligns, you have to almost think about them moving up to spawn. So a great example is last year on Santee Cooper. They had some things that obviously seemed to push the spawn back. Then all at one time, late for that specific, or I wouldn't say too late, but definitely a little later. They could have spawned earlier, but they had some colder weather coming through, and then right at tournament time last year, they had a full moon. Actually, it was nearly full. Right leading up to the tournament. During the tournament, it was days away. I think the 18th, which was like the day after the tournament ended, was when the full moon actually hit. But I think that the moon being the only factor can possibly be tested coming up this year. So, like I said, from my experience, I think that increases in light during the days getting longer, are kind of a simple thing to go off of, that as the days get longer, the fish are going to start to spawn, because they do spawn gradually over a long period of time. Then also, stable water conditions. If you have water that is rising, falling quickly, it can mess with their spawn just a little bit or a lot. But in the next little bit, I think we're going to start to see on Okeechobee and on Lake Seminole, we're going to see a test of how much the moon is actually playing when it comes to the spawn, because those tournaments are actually going to fall out past the full moon. So we actually just had the full moon. We're going down, and we'll get the new moon. I believe the new moon's going to come right around the time of the Okeechobee tournament, and then it's just going to be kind of in a weird period in the moon cycle for the Seminole tournament. Now, that could also end up being a little early depending on the weather patterns for those tournaments for the spawn. Actually, Florida, I wouldn't say early at all for Okeechobee. All that is just it'll be weather and possibly moon cycle. Now, if the weather lines up and they kill them on the bed on Okeechobee, and then they go straight over to Seminole, and it's another bed fishing tournament because the weather lines up. Because so far, it's starting to look like, which I haven't been there in I guess a couple months now, on Lake Seminole, it looks like the weather is lining up pretty good there currently. Still a long way away. We're still almost a month away from them going there. But there's a strong possibility that during that tournament we might see the moon cycle hypothesis, or whatever you want to call it, get disproven, because it is not going to line up with the moon cycle at all. But I will say to anybody that's looking at going out trying to find fish as they're moving up to spawn, that you really need to I guess keep an eye out there all the time. When you're fishing shallow in the spring, don't think that just because the moon isn't right that you won't see a big one move up there. You absolutely will see fish spawn outside of the cycle. Not all of them are just gonna go parading up there just because they see the moon get full. But there are a lot of things that you need to keep your eye out for, because they do all play factors, and you will see more fish move up there in those times, but not all of them. There will absolutely be fish move up outside those times. So I guess the gist of this video of what I'm saying from my personal experience is that there are truths to almost all the stories, because a lot of the stories are based off of people's experience. My experience personally is that there's a little bit of truth everywhere. I think that there's the most truth for me personally in that if the fish have a lot of stable weather patterns and like a full moon without cloud cover where they are actually experiencing the light, that is more so what it is. It's not something that's pushing in tides or anything for them. It's really just light based. They're able at night to see predators better so they can guard their beds, and that I think that's totally what you're going to see with those. Now, we might see a lot of that get disproven here soon, but stay tuned. I'm going to be watching closely for these next couple tournaments because I think it's going to be some pretty interesting stuff play out. See you guys on the next video. Subscribe to the channel.